Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Thursday, getting closer to the big weekend of the Final Four. Plenty of preview of the big matchups Saturday and, of course, Monday, which we'll be back for here on NewsWire to preview as well. Also, an interesting day of Major League Baseball slate, some day games, some night games. We'll break it all down for you as well. We've got Daniel Collins, Sweatpant Jesus in the house, talk some college basketball. We'll go over some of his picks for the weekend. Maybe some NBA will throw in as well. Scott Spinelli, college basketball analyst, will join us. And also from Covers, Josh Inglis is in the house as we get ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs in the National Hockey League. So that and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. Let's get started. We'll start off with the transfer rule being instituted in the NCAA. They've added a new rule that will punish programs that sign a transfer student athlete, add a transfer student athlete to a roster, or allow a transfer student athlete to participate in athletically related activities before the student athlete is entered into the NCAA transfer portal. That could include a suspension of a head coach, 50% of a season, and fine of 20% in a budget. So basically, this new transfer portal rules are being instituted. You're going to get punished if you break them. We'll see if anybody does this year. Meanwhile, Bill Self is returning to Kansas next season. College basketball, one of the greatest coaches ever, is back again. Says he's focused and committed to Kansas competing for a national championship. He said that his coaching future with his family would be discussed, but he is back yet again. 855 wins over 33 years at Oral Roberts, Tulsa, Illinois, and Kansas. So he will be back again. Very, let's say, peculiar story percolating out of the National Football League. Some folks thought that this was an April Fool's joke yesterday, but indeed not the case. Puka Nacua, the star wide receiver for the Rams, has entered into rehab, says his attorney Levi McCathern told the California Post. They're saying that Nacua is going under a substantial time of rehab and will be back for the regular season, maybe even back for the OTAs. But there really aren't a lot of details as to why, what, and how. So we'll keep it private and keep it out. But Puka Nacua, certainly one of the great players in the NFL, having to go through some issues right now. Okay, issues. That's the case for the Orlando Magic all season long. What is going on with them? They lost to the Magic last night. That's fine. But they lost 130 to 101. Hawks were on the road and blew them out. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had 32 points as the Magic are just simply falling apart. We'll hear from Quinn Snyder on the Hawks as he picked up a win for his team, and it does appear that Jamal Mosley is searching for answers on his Magic.
The first time out, we talked about just more. And got to do more in every area of the game, and our guys responded, and they did. They raised their level, and when we settled in defensively and were able to get stops, I think we did a pretty good job converting, and that's the challenge for us is just to stay in character.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I have to go back and look at the film in this situation. It looked like missed shots at the rim. They were able to get out and get a bunch of easy baskets then. Long shots on our misses, they were able to get out and get some easy baskets. And our defense broke down one too many times where they're slipping out of screens. Our communication had to turn up a little bit, and it wasn't there. You got to give Atlanta a ton of credit. They have our number in this moment, and they kicked our ass, and that's what it is right now.
Wow, Jamal Mosley not happy about that. Eric Spoelstra wasn't happy about his team yesterday either. Best offensive game, you could say, for the Celtics, and worst defensive game for the Miami Heat. Check out this score, 147 to 129. The Celtics cover and put almost 150 points on the Miami Heat. Jaylen Brown had 43. Jason Tatum had his first triple-double of the season. Tatum talked about Jaylen Brown's 43-point output, and Eric Spoelstra says that the team appears to be headed toward the play-in game.
I thought it was special. Obviously somebody that's always been capable, but it was just an opportunity where more was required from everybody, but obviously especially him. I think a lot of times the NBA is about opportunity, and guys really make the most out of the special ones, and that's exactly what he's been able to do this year.
This is going to sound crazy, but this is different than the other games that we're talking about. Our guys, were locked in and competing. There was an exceptional level of shot making on their part.
All right. Well, giving credit to the Celtics, that's one way to look at it. Spurs get a lot of credit. They beat the Warriors 127 to 113. The Warriors do barely cover this big line. Wemby, my gosh, 41 points, 18 rebounds in the game. Mitch Johnson just thrilled with how well Wemby is playing down the stretch toward the playoffs.
You guys have spent this season figuring out how to use Victor in all the unique ways that you've used him. What do you think has been the key of that process over the course of the year of like understanding how to utilize a talent that's so unique?
I think it's been a commitment to a brand of basketball and identity that we talked about in October, and we knew there'd be some growing pains, and we knew that there would be some adjustments that would need to be made as we learn more about our team and the players on our team and to play to our strengths. And I think it's also been an open-mindedness to balance that and understand, as things grow, things can change or be adjusted for the better. And so I think the balance of that, of trying to have a base that is consistent throughout time and circumstances and availability and all the other things that we can't control, but then also keeping a growth mindset and continuing to evolve.
Spurs will be one of those teams to watch in the Western Conference playoffs. Maybe the Nuggets will as well. Jamal Murray had 10 three-pointers in their win over the Utah Jazz, 130 to 117. Murray had 37. And the Washington Wizards, have they punted their season? I gave up 153 points last night to the Philadelphia 76ers. Even Paul George had 39 points. Poor Wizards looking toward next year. All right, in Major League Baseball, the future is now. The Pittsburgh Pirates make the announcement official. They are calling up young shortstop Connor Griffin. He'll make his Major League debut tomorrow. They've been talking about a contract extension. No word on whether or not that will get done before tomorrow, but Griffin is set to make his Major League debut as the Pirates open up at PNC Park. Meanwhile, best record in baseball, Miami Marlins. Did you have that one at the beginning of the season? Tied with the Yankees right now, and they'll face off against each other this weekend. The Marlins beat the White Sox 10-0 yesterday. Sandy Alcantara with a complete game shutout, and Liam Hicks hit a home run. He leads the majors in runs batted in. Bounce back for Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates. 5 innings pitched, just 1 run, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Pirates beat the Reds 8-3. O'Neal Cruz also hit another home run, but Skeens obviously much happier with this outcome than he did on opening day.
Paul, Jake Mangum told us in the clubhouse today, when O'Neal Cruz goes, we go as a team. When you're standing there watching that 3-run homer before you go out, is that getting you even more amped to get out there?
Yeah, it makes it real easy to pitch. And when he hits another one, like he did yesterday, right? Makes it even easier. So it's been fun to watch.
Can you be pleased with the product you were able to put out there today?
Yeah, definitely, work in progress still, but yeah, nice to give some volume and be out there for more than 2/3 of an inning.
All right, so Skeens is back on track. The Cleveland Guardians showed the Dodgers what they're all about this week. They win 4-1 last night thanks to Gavin Williams. He won the game, 7 innings pitched and 10 strikeouts. Jose Ramirez also hit his first home run of the season. The Astros beat the struggling Red Sox. What's going on with them at the beginning of the season? Houston wins 6-4. Correa with a 3-run home run there. The Mets lose to the Cardinals and lose their series. They lost in 11 innings, 2-1. And the Cardinals were home dogs. They end up picking up the win there. And St. Louis 4-2. Very impressive to the start of their season. All right, we'll take a quick timeout here on the show. When we come back next, our buddy Sweatpant Jesus is in the house. Dan Collins to break down the latest in the National Basketball Association. We'll give out some picks as well. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're off and running on this Thursday, and we'll be right back.
There's a basketball player who's 7'9", he's insignificant on his team. And quite frankly, I don't know if he goes Division 1, 2, or 3 at this point and will be significant. Joe, how can you be 7'9" and not be able to get on the court in college basketball? Shouldn't he be maybe, I don't know, the most dominant shot blocker in the history? I watched Manu Bol be a really good player at times in the NBA.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Italy can't make the World Cup. That's wildly embarrassing.
You know, Italy, to me, I think they're like the Cowboys, right? They're the Dallas Cowboys, basically. They're this ultimate sort of public team, big merch, like, you know, monsters.
That's a good one.
Yet they really haven't won in a while. But we're talking about a world superpower.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, this is kind of where Kalshi got on the radar, I think. They started with the Super Bowl last year, right, where they started taking a little bit of betting on the Super Bowl, but March Madness is where it took off. And over the course of the entire men's and women's tournaments last year, they took about $500 billion in trades. This year, first weekend, Thursday through Sunday, they're already past $1 billion traded.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
As a former pitcher who thought the umpires were wrong far more than people let on, I like the ABS system. But you're going to have problems because umpires are going to start having issue with the fact that they're being called out. Well, here's the thing. Umpires are now going to be treated like players. They're going to get publicly embarrassed when they make mistakes in front of the fans.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. SBJ Daniel Collins is with us to preview all of the NBA games tonight. We'll go over some odds for the Rookie of the Year. But before we get to that, it's great to have you back on the show, of course. I mean, is this a more difficult time of the year to handicap the NBA? I mean, I know the entire season is tough just because of the players that are in and out, but it just feels like the final week of the NBA season almost has just become a slog with just the tanking teams, the teams that are in it, just playing backups. I wonder how you do this on a daily basis.
You know, it's funny. You have to kind of just ignore half the association right now. And if you see them playing, you just kind of put them to the side and don't worry about them. But the best part of it is, Craig, this year specifically with the parity that we have in the NBA. I mean, we talked about it when I was with you last week. Both of these conferences right now, the races for the 5th through the 10th spot is wide open for a lot of teams right now. So you're getting chances on a night-to-night basis. I mean, you talked about it a little bit in your opener, just how incredible some of the performances was last night from Wemby, from what the Celtics have been doing. So, yeah, it's hard to kind of sift through a little bit of the bottom tier of the NBA, you know, getting rid of some of those tanking teams. But luckily, the slate we have tonight, every single game has implications, which is nice. It obviously leads into those spreads. Those spreads are pretty tight, so kind of hard to handicap, like you mentioned. But from a prop perspective, from following these teams and what's going on with the NBA down the stretch into getting into the play-in and obviously the start of the playoffs, it's the best time of year. It's like Christmas. You know, March Madness is just about to finish off, but now we get the madness of the NBA season, which is take you into April nicely.
It is. We're almost there. NBA playoffs. That'll be a lot of fun. All right. So let's discuss the short lines tonight. We'll focus on those. As you mentioned, the Pistons jumping for joy after clinching their division, which is certainly incredible to think that they hadn't done this in like 20 years, but they did. And so, I mean, look, they're not on cruise control necessarily, but they are 3.5-point favorites. Minnesota jockeying, as you mentioned, for position. They're plus 3.5. I believe Anthony Edwards is back tonight. Am I right about that or no? I know he didn't play this weekend. Total of 225.
He is technically back. He is still questionable tag with that knee injury that he's been nursing over the last 3 weeks of the season. I think that he probably will play in this game, which is indicating of the spread. I think this would be a higher, like 5.5, 6-point spread, depending on or maybe even a little lower than that if Edwards did end up sitting. But I think Edwards is probably going to be in the lineup here, probably not playing a full complement of minutes, but you're still dealing with injuries on the Pistons side. Obviously, Cade Cunningham still. They do get Duren, Harris, Thompson, and Duncan Robinson back, so most of that starting lineup lineup is back in the rotation. It's been a lot of games down the stretch here for the Pistons. And as you mentioned, they got the Celtics right on their heels, but I think that the Pistons are still going to lock up the number 1 seed. I kind of like the Timberwolves with the points here. I feel like this game just means a tiny bit more for this team on the road. Don't really necessarily want there specifically, but I'm going to kind of target a prop here. I really love Ayo Dosunmu here. The rebounds and assist line at 9.5. He has been awesome since he got traded midseason from the Bulls, getting inserted as kind of a 6-man to start off when he joined this team, and now he is in the starting rotation. I love this line even more, obviously, if Edwards sits out, but the other night, first triple-double for this team. I've been chasing that since he joined them and missed out, unfortunately, but his involvement with the offense and how he facilitates rebounds from the guard position, I think, is going to be on full display in a very defensive battle with one of the best defensive teams at home in the Pistons. So really like Dosunmu's props. I also think, like you mentioned, Edwards will play, but look for a little bit of a minutes restriction possibly. And I kind of leave with the Wolves with the points here, just because, like I said, and like you mentioned, this Western Conference race right in the middle of the thick of things right there. Every single one of these dubs matters. So I think the Wolves are going to come out with some intensity tonight.
All right. Speaking of which, Suns in a similar position, trying to get themselves out of a position that they don't want to be in. I don't know if that's possible, but we'll find out. Boy, the Hornets have had a great year. They're 5.5-point favorites tonight. Total of 222.5. I know they covered a huge line the other day. Can they cover this as, not a huge line, but a mid-sized line against Phoenix tonight?
See, this is one of those situations like you kind of talked about where you have teams down the stretch where you just have to look at individualized matchups and look at what it means to them in the standings. So you have two teams, as you mentioned, in the West and the East going head to head here. Suns in the middle of the thick of things, sitting in that 7 seed, but they don't really have, they're pretty much going to be at that 7 spot. They could still jump into the 6 spot, possibly. If they lose down the stretch every single game, they could probably fall out of that 7 spot. But the Hornets, on the other hand, sitting at 8th right now. And Craig, between the Hawks, who are 5th, who've been hot, super hot, and the Heat in 10th, there's only 4.5 games between those 5 teams right there. This Hornets team's right in the middle of that. So at home, this is why I think the spread is sitting where it's at here. I think that this game just means a little bit more for the Hornets. Now, in normal situations, I would lean with the Suns and the points, just because I do think that this team is very good, and I do think that this is a situation where they could cover that 5.5. But I think the Hornets come out with a little bit more intensity tonight, just because of what they see is happening around them in the conference. The Hawks, they've been fantastic. Like I mentioned, the 76ers out of nowhere are looking like they're going to make some noise too. So the Raptors have been falling off. I think this is a chance for the Hornets to kind of reestablish themselves and possibly even try to climb out of the play-in.
So the Rookie of the Year race, I wasn't aware that Con Knuppel just went far and away ahead of Cooper Flagg. I mean, I guess where have I been? I thought Cooper Flagg and him were probably going to be even down the stretch, but no. I don't recall a Rookie of the Year race being this close with a handful of games to go. So, I mean, I think if Flagg turns it on in the end, there's going to be a tough decision to make here.
I love the value just from a betting perspective on taking Cooper Flagg at plus 190. Obviously, he was the far and away plus 1,000 or higher favorite for most of the season. And obviously, with what we just talked about with the Hornets and what Con Knuppel has brought to the table for that team, recency bias has been on full display with this award and the MVP, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think for the value, you just got to take a stab at Cooper. I think he's gunning to kind of catch Con at this particular point. The Mavericks aren't going to do anything this season. They aren't going to make the playoffs. They are eliminated. It's all about just developing Cooper, developing this chemistry with this team. He's been flirting with triple doubles. His rebound and facilitating has been fantastic in his first year as well. Obviously scoring a lot too, but I think for the value, like you mentioned, take a stab at Cooper Flagg plus 190 and sweat it out for the rest of the season.
So the NBA, you have an alternative pick to taking SGA. I'm very surprised if that is the case. I mean, Wemby's 3-1. It's those two now coming down the stretch. Cunningham, certainly out of it now at this point. But you really think Wemby has a shot to win this?
So, Craig, to me, I hate this award because it's gotten to the point now where it's just completely turned into semantics. The top 4 guys for this award right now, Wemby, SGA, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic, in my opinion, all 4 of those guys, statistically, you can make an argument that these guys could be the MVP. To me, right now, if you take Luka Doncic off the Lakers, he is my MVP. So that would be kind of how I look at this award specifically. You can give me all the metrics all you want, and that's just how this award works. But to me right now, Luka Doncic is my MVP pick, even for the value.
All right, great stuff as always, Dan. We'll catch up again soon. Thanks for coming on.
There's a basketball player who's 7'9". He's insignificant on his team. And quite frankly, I don't know if he goes Division 1, 2, or 3 at this point and will be significant. Joe, how can you be 7'9" and not be able to get on the court in college basketball? Shouldn't he be maybe, I don't know, the most dominant shot blocker in the history? I watched Manu Bol be a really good player at times in the NBA.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Italy can't make the World Cup. That's wildly embarrassed.
You know, Italy, to me, I think they're like the Cowboys, right? They're the Dallas Cowboys, basically. They're this ultimate sort of public team, big merch, like, you know, monsters.
That's a good one.
Yet they really haven't won in a while. But we're talking about a world superpower.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, this is kind of where Kalshi got on the radar, I think. They started with the Super Bowl last year, right, where they started taking a little bit of betting on the Super Bowl, but March Madness is where it took off. And over the course of the entire men's and women's tournaments last year, they took about $500 billion in trades. This year, first weekend, Thursday through Sunday, they're already past $1 billion traded.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
As a former pitcher who thought the umpires were wrong far more than people let on, I like the ABS system. But you're going to have problems because umpires are going to start having issue with the fact that they're being called out. Well, here's the thing. Umpires are now going to be treated like players. They're going to get publicly embarrassed when they make mistakes in front of the fans.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
All right, well, we're back with SPJ because we just didn't get everything in the NBA that we wanted to. So he's going to stick around with us for a few more minutes and see if we can give out some picks and some props here before we wrap. Okay, so let's go back to the slate tonight. We just did the Rookie of the Year for those of you who are watching on demand, and we also did the MVP. So now let's get to this game tonight. Thunder against the Lakers. Thunder -9, total 231.5. Good news and bad news for the Lakers. Good news, they're playing good basketball down the stretch here, so maybe they do have a shot to go deep into the playoffs. This is as good as I can remember them playing in a while. Bad news is they play Oklahoma City, a team that no matter what the line is, they're not afraid of smashing it. So that's the story tonight going into OKC.
Head tonight. Luka Doncic and SGA, the defending MVP candidate from last year. So fascinating game. I think the spread is really interesting. I'm surprised it's 9 with how good the Lakers have been. They had their best March, Craig, that they've had only twice in Lakers history. They won. They were 13-2, which is the best record they've had. They've only repeated that once in their entire Laker franchise history, which is incredible with how deep this team has been for decades. So as you mentioned, they're playing fantastic ball. If I had to pick a side, I would definitely lean with the Lakers. I think this is too many points, even in OKC. I think OKC is probably going to win this basketball game, but this is going to be a dogfight all the way down until the middle of the fourth quarter. Luka Doncic has been on an absolute tear and kind of mixing in the middle, even though Luka's been spectacular over the last 6 weeks. LeBron James has been awesome. He has been just fantastic, fitting into this like secondary role that he has finally embraced, which is the big reason why the Lakers have been so good for this last 6 week stretch. So I'm targeting 2 props in this game, both of them on the Lakers side. I'm not going to explain this pick to you, Greg. I'm sure you can pick up what I'm putting down here. I'm taking Luka Doncic's points over 31.5. He hasn't had fantastic games against the Thunder, but he has been on an absolute heater. He is going to probably take 20 to 25 shots. If the Lakers have any chance of winning this basketball game, Luka Doncic is going to have to flirt with 40 points. It's how it's been, and it's how it's going to continue to be. So nice and chalky there. The other one, this one I like a little bit better for plus money. And like I just mentioned with LeBron James, I'm taking LeBron James's rebounds and assists line. It's 12.5 for plus money. He has been awesome facilitating the basketball, rebounding, double-digit potential assists in 5 straight games. Had a triple-double the other night when Lucas sat out when they took on the Wizards. as I mentioned, this is the best form of this team. When Luka's scoring, when Austin Reeves is filling the gaps, and when LeBron James is kind of doing a little bit of everything else. So if we see that on display tonight, they stick around with the Thunder, higher total as well with the 231.5 with the way the Thunder play defense. I think we're going to see some scoring. This will be a game that I will be watching. If you're not a massive basketball fan, check out this game tonight. It's going to be a fantastic battle between two really good teams in the Western Conference and could be a Western Conference final preview.
Yeah, maybe 3 Hall of Famers involved in this game too, which you never see in the NBA. Okay,
Absolutely.
so tonight I'm curious of this line here: Spurs -4 at the Clippers. The Spurs, far and away the hottest team in the West right now. The Clippers are going to be forced to play Portland or Golden State or just somebody to play in at some point, and they're getting 4 tonight. The total is 231.5. So what am I missing here? I thought San Antonio would be a bigger favorite here, but I'm obviously missing something tonight.
This Clippers team over the last 2 or 3 weeks, since the addition really of Darius Garland in the starting lineup with the trade with the Cleveland Cavaliers, has been awesome. I don't really understand it either, to be honest. Ty Lue has just kind of put some magic together and stirred the pot a little bit and said, "Here, let's see how this works." And they've totally figured it out. Kawhi Leonard has been playing all NBA level basketball, which obviously is the massive key to this as well. But I think the spread makes sense. The Spurs are on a little bit of a tear, as you mentioned, but they're on a back-to-back here. Even though this team is young and hungry, you played the clip of the head coach from the Spurs talking about them buying into this particular, what they're accomplishing and their goals this season, and we're seeing that on full display led by Victor Wembanyama. But I like the Clippers in the points. I didn't bet it. I think that the 4.5 is a nice bet. I think that Clippers could maybe even win this game outright. Look, the Spurs still need to probably catch the Thunder at the top of the West, but the Clippers need this game way more than the Spurs do, and they're coming in off a back-to-back. That being said, I'm not going to fade Wemby. He's playing too good right now, so I'm not going to do that specifically. Too good. But the bet I have in this game is Stephon Castle, his running mate on the Spurs, over 12.5 RA rebounds and assist line there. This line doesn't make any sense to me, Craig. I said this earlier this season, and I was loving Castle last year when he won his Rookie of the Year campaign, but he is the engine that makes this team go. If this team's going to compete with / win a championship deep in the playoffs, it's going to be on the back of Stephon Castle. I know Wembanyama is the MVP candidate. He's going to have to be amazing, but if Castle plays at a near triple-double level, which he's been doing night in and night out, this team is almost impossible to beat. So I'm betting on that tonight, 12.5 rebounds and assists for Stephon Castle. But again, I think the Clippers stick around and maybe even win this game outright.
Do we have a graphic for all the picks tonight? Do we have time to get these in? I don't. Okay, we don't. All right. You got them all. Rewind the show if you need to. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Find some opportunities to make yourself some money, or to find a middle, or man, that doesn't look right, I'm going to go under it, whatever, arbitrage, hedge. You could do all of these things. It's why we do these shows. And in-game betting, I know a lot of people that make a lot of money off of in-game betting. There's nothing wrong with in-game betting. I think it's much more good than it is bad. But sometimes for your own peace of mind, it is okay to just walk away and check on it later.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
Parlays are pretty much the reason that FanDuel and DraftKings were able to become profitable a couple years ago. Think about a straight bet that someone places on a sports book, usually about 5% hold rate for a sports book. A parlay, it's about 20%. So there's a reason that all the promos you get, all the advertisements, all centered around parlays.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Whatever the gap people believe is between the Dodgers and the Mets, I think that's the gap between the Mets and then the third team. I think the Mets are comfortably the second best team in this league. The Phillies are a much older baseball team with an injured Zach Wheeler. The Braves' entire rotation is either injured or injury prone. Maybe you love this Cubs team.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I think there's an opportunity down the board. I think Pete Alonso likely has some new life. And what about your boy Schwarber here? We know
Come on.
Up at the top, he's going to have enough at-bats and enough pitches to do it. Sounds like he's got 40 to 50 home runs. I don't even think working really hard this year.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to catch up with Scott Spinelli, who joins us now to break down some college basketball. He's been involved in the game for decades and certainly has a great, interesting perspective on the Final Four coming up this weekend, and certainly has been watching the tournament very closely. Scott, thank you so much for making the time for us here on NewsWire. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here.
All right, so Scott, your thoughts, first of all, on the NCAA tournament. I know we've had some fantastic finishes, without a doubt. We had very few Cinderellas for the second straight year now. Has that kind of changed your opinion at all as to how we should view the NCAA tournament, or is this just a couple of years in a row of a lot of chalky teams getting or toward the end?
Well, I think, first of all, now with the NCAA tournament and these high major programs being as well funded as they are, it's going to be very difficult for these mid-major programs to compete and get to that second weekend. Unless there's an upset in that bracket, with a higher seed, I don't think you're going to see many Cinderellas moving forward. I mean, these rosters that are being constructed at this high level between revenue share and collectives, I mean, these teams are built to be very successful. They're experienced guys. They're guys who have played, some of them professionally in Europe, even professionally here in the States. And so there is a little bit of a difference in terms of the level that these high major teams, in terms of their roster construction, have as it relates to the mid-majors. So don't think you're going to see many mid-majors moving forward to the second weekend, especially into the third weekend.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, at least for the time being. We'll see if things change. Okay, so Scott, the game of the tournament, without a doubt, was UConn and Duke. I mean, the game itself was really good. The finish was absolutely stunning, and to see all the different camera angles of Shire and everyone on Duke, and even the other side too, and you see the very emphatic Dan Hurley there picking up the win. What did you make of that finish?
Well, you got to give UConn all the credit. I mean, they were 1 of 18 in the first half from the three, and it just shows their championship pedigree and what Coach Hurley and his staff have built there. There's a team there that, again, when you have that championship lineage, that pedigree of winning, especially into the Final Fours and winning national titles, there's a big advantage. There's a belief. The guys truly understand what it takes to win during that time. And you got to give them a lot of credit. You feel for Duke because, again, going into this bracket, we all thought, with Caleb Foster being out and the matchups there with teams that were going to pressure him, specifically as St. John's, that would come back to get him. But again, you really feel, I mean, the year that they've had in the last two seasons, 46-2 in the ACC, and to lose like that, you feel for those guys.
Yeah, and I think so. But Duke will be back, and UConn, certainly we got to give them credit. I think that's fair. But the end sequence was kind of crazy to see, and I think the momentum is something that a lot of folks thought would carry the Huskies into the Final Four. But the odds makers are just point blank telling us, Scott, that Illinois is the better team. It's a neutral site, certainly, for the Final Four, and they're 2.5-point favorites, so it's slight. Total of 139.5 in this game. Did you think that Illinois would go this far, Scott? And do you think that they have another win in them?
Well, Illinois, got better as the year went on, and they really got lucky with Boswell going down and really Wagler getting an opportunity to showcase his talents. I mean, he's a lottery pick as a freshman. And then you combine that with all of the European talent. Those kids that came over from the Balkans, they're very experienced. They make a lot of money over there. And the way they play, it's a little bit of a different, unconventional style. And that's going to be kind of the storyline in this game. What Illinois does is they run up with those bigs, especially, the twins, that can come up and set those ball screens. And what they do is they twist them. It's kind of a European ball screen type thing. And I think for UConn, they're going to have to make sure that their point of ball screen coverage is excellent in this game. Reed's going to have to be up there. And what will happen is if they don't punch over those screens and they get into 2-on-1s, they're just going to throw back to Illinois' big and they're going to make three. So that's going to be an interesting storyline. Illinois' defense has gotten better, but let me tell you, UConn's half-court offensive execution with their misdirections, their screening actions, their ghost screens, I think this is going to be a very difficult game for Illinois. And I just think, again, UConn's pedigree. If it was a 4-7 series, I'd take Illinois. But I really like UConn's championship pedigree in this game.
Okay, fair enough, Scott. Now, this is the tougher game to call of the two. I mean, I've heard so many varying opinions on this game since the beginning of the week. Michigan taking on Arizona. It feels like everybody's just rooting for the best game of the tournament. That's the way that I think most people view it. And a lot of folks also are saying, at least in the handicapping view, that this game probably ends up pick'em by the time Saturday night comes. But as of right now, Michigan's a 1.5 favorite. The total is 157.5, so we could get a lot of scoring as well on Saturday night. So you tell me, Scott. I got a coin flip game here.
Well, both teams are very complete, right? You've got tremendous front court size. I mean, that's going to kind of offset. And I think what it's going to come down to when you really look at this game, I think it's going to come down to the great equalizer, which is the three-point line. And I think if you look at it, Arizona State's about 6.5 threes made a game, and Michigan's about 9, a little bit over 9. And I really believe the three-point line will decide this game. And for me, just because Michigan shoots it, better, a little bit better percentage, but they make more. When you take everything for granted, if Arizona makes, 5 twos, and Michigan makes 4 threes, Michigan wins the game. I'm going with Michigan because of that three-point line.
Yeah, it should be a great game Saturday night, and then we get a championship on Monday night. Can't wait for that as well. National title, by the way, it does appear that the odds makers have made either Michigan or Arizona one. The winner of this, they think, is going to win the national championship. At least they have the shortest odds going into the championship. As you can see, Michigan plus 150, Arizona plus 180, and then Illinois and UConn. Who knows what could happen in the championship game? Scott, while we have you here, I figured let's touch on the latest coaching news in college basketball. Bill Self is going to come back. Seems like he just needed a break or a breather or whatever it is. But, Scott, Bill Self, like a lot of other coaches entering this era of the NIL and everything else, it's not as easy for Kansas as it was 3 or 4 years ago. But certainly, they have enough players, I think, and I'm guessing they'll hit the portal, find some others. It's still a very storied program, but it's not just like Fog Allen is worth just playing for. At this point, you got to have money. Does Kansas have the resources to help Bill Self moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. I think Coach Self's an excellent coach. And, to your point, I think there's a huge advantage right now for the older, more experienced coaches. And here's why. The days of chasing these younger kids around and trying to go on the road and outwork somebody, they're gone. I mean, now it comes down to your evaluation, your network, and your ability to kind of, plug a team together and find out that intel. So I think Coach Self staying is great for the game. He's an excellent coach, competed against him for a long time. And I think that him being back, I think he'll do, again, big things. Kansas has got the resources, no question about it.
All right. Well, last job that probably will be open in terms of a huge gig. It's North Carolina. The Tar Heels have an opening, Scott, and this is rare, of course, in college basketball. Which direction do you think they end up going? I think most thought at the time Hubert Davis was going to be there a long time.
You feel for Hubert Davis. I mean, think about it. They lost Caleb Wilson, arguably a top 5 pick. And again, they still made it to the tournament and had a 19-point lead. So, class guy, Hubert Davis, his entire staff are Carolina guys. I know them very well. You really feel for those guys. And in terms of what they're going to do with this search, it could be anybody, NBA, sitting head coach in college. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Scott, always great to catch up. Enjoy the Final Four and enjoy the championship on Monday night. And we'll always appreciate your insights here on SportsGrid. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
All right, Scott Spinelli here with us. Some news in the National Football League, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show. It looks like Kirk Cousins has found a new location. He's signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, of course, the Raiders have the first overall pick in the draft, so in all likelihood, Cousins probably a backup, but it seems like the NFL shifting a little bit, maybe to a backup starting and keeping that seat warm for the rookie, and in this case, maybe Mendoza. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. But coming up next, we'll get into the National Hockey League as they wrap up the regular season after this. All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Josh English joins us, courtesy of Covers. The Stanley Cup playoffs are about to get underway as we wrap up the season. Let's bring in Josh for some selections coming up this weekend and some thoughts on the upcoming playoffs. Josh, thanks for coming on NewsWire. Great to catch up.
Yeah, happy Thursday. How are you?
I'm doing well. All right, so let's start off with the slate tonight. 7:10 p.m. Eastern, we have Montreal taking on New York. The Canadiens are headed toward the playoffs. The Rangers are headed toward vacationing. Minus 152 is the money line tonight. Total of 6.5. Do the Rangers fight hard here down the stretch, or does Montreal keep pushing? They're third in the Atlantic.
It's the NHL. Obviously, everything points to the Rangers still continuing to struggle at home despite winning 3 in a row. 4 in a row seems like a tall task for this team, but Montreal has been an absolute wagon. Jakub Dobeš has been incredible. 2 or fewer in 6 straight games. Montreal on a 6-0 run right now. Outscoring opponents 26-9, playing their best. I was a little worried where Carrier was injured on the blue line. Alex Carrier. Turns out they can get things done, but they will be top 4 heavy. Big minutes, I think, for Mike Matheson today. He's plus 165 for a point. I just think we continue to fade the Rangers at home with the worst offense. Nothing to play for. Yes, they've played well, but we've just seen them from time to time be the most inconsistent hockey team in all of hockey. But in NHL scripture, the way things work could be a Rangers win in terms of beating the hottest team in hockey. And Montreal can actually put the fear into everybody in the Atlantic right now because first place is not out of the realms. Buffalo ahead of them, Tampa Bay ahead of them. That's how good this team is. They might be a little top line heavy, but this is a team you don't want to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, Habs at home in the playoffs would be huge for them, especially getting home field, which appears they will do. All right, so you would have thought by now that Buffalo would, maybe have the East and the Atlantic wrapped up, but they don't. The Lightning are right on their heels here tonight, and they're playing Ottawa just after 7 p.m. And Ottawa's at home minus 120. Total is 6.5, and certainly Buffalo needs every win down the stretch. But Josh, the Senators do too, fighting for that wild card spot, fighting for any kind of home ice they can get.
Both spots, 8 spots in the West and the East, are actually going to be an incredible run down here with like about 7 games left. But at minus 120, Ottawa at home versus a Buffalo team that has played incredible hockey. Lindy Ruff probably going to get the Jack Adams. But in saying that, they still have to finish the job. And if they fall short and let go of first place, that's going to be a big issue for them. Ottawa minus 120, but Buffalo has showed that they can be better than the books in terms of pricing on the road. They've won plenty of road games where they've been the dog this year. And one thing that is in their favor today is that Ottawa can to get decimated on the blue line. Rookie Carter Yakubchuk, who was playing power play one and was filling in for Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, he's out as well. The top 4 guys on this team, Jordan Spence included, are going to play giant minutes. Jordan Spence probably goes to power play one. He's going to play 23, 24, 25 minutes. He's plus 125 for a point. That's on my card. Another issue here, Ottawa and the Tkachuks. Brady Tkachuk was on his brother's podcast talking to his dad, of all people. Turned into a dramatic situation where his dad, Keith Tkachuk, Big Walt, said something about players being soft, whether that was a reference to players in Florida or to Brady Tkachuk's goalie and Linus Allmark. Isn't so sure, but Brady Tkachuk and Linus Allmark were supposed to talk to media today. That got canceled, so there could be some more rifts in the team and something that's put this Ottawa team behind the 8 ball all year.
Wow, could be interesting to see how they perform in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Meanwhile, most feel the playoffs are better with the Red Wings in it. That's going to be the case this season. They take on the Flyers tonight, 7:10 Eastern. 39 wins on the year for Detroit. The Flyers have 37. Boy, looks like a coin flip game here. Minus 110 both sides. Total 5.5. Game in Philadelphia tonight, Josh.
If you're a Detroit fan, you're absolutely gutted every year. This is a team that continually just falls short in March. I think there's a tweet yesterday about how embarrassing Steve Yzerman's team is post-trade deadline because they don't do anything. Todd McClellan tried to fire this team up after an ugly loss, and they came out and got absolutely waxed again. This team just doesn't have any fight. And on the other side, Philadelphia is arrows up. Yes, we saw Dan Vladar kind of get beat up, but Sam Ersson has been surprisingly one of the better goalies since the Olympics. I think he's 5-0, 933 save percentage. This is a team that also brought up NCAA star Porter Martone, which obviously is a boost to the locker room and morale. He went for PP1 first game, will go to PP2. I got him for over 2.5 shots, plus 150, had the best expected goals of the game versus, I believe that was the Washington game, the shootout game, ended up losing that. But Philly money line is aside. I think Porter Martone on a shot market, which I usually don't pay, but plus 150 is a good price.
All right, here come the Lightning again, second in the Atlantic. They take on the Penguins tonight, 7:10 Eastern. Tampa Bay always good at home and a big favorite tonight as well. Minus 178, total 6.5. Like some of the other games we discussed, boy, Lightning seemingly playing some really good hockey down the stretch.
Yeah, but so is Pittsburgh. This is a really tough game to play. I don't really have much on this game. Brian Rust does return to the lineup, and Igor Chinnikov will remain on the top line with Sidney Crosby and Ricard Raquel. Anthony Mantha just had a kid. He's playing power play one. I don't know if you want to give a baby bump. It's not the best edge you have in the world, but he is. But no play on this game, but certainly a very big game in the playoff seeding.
All right, Minnesota tonight, Josh. I don't know what you do with this one. You rarely see a line this big in hockey. Minus 450 Minnesota over Vancouver. Boy, Vancouver has certainly had a horrible year, but got to play this some other way, I suppose.
Vancouver saw this same price yesterday in Colorado when they beat up on the Avalanche. This is point night everywhere. Minnesota playing some lax hockey. Brock Besser, who had a hat trick with Marco Rossi for a point each, plus 225. This is the Quinn Hughes revenge game trade. There's lots of guys on that Vancouver side. Ryan Hartman centering Kirill Kaprizov and Zuccarello, plus 190 for an assist. I think this game could be loose.
Josh, let's squeeze in one more. Edmonton, Chicago tonight. Edmonton, of course, going to be back in the Western Conference picture. They're minus 230 against Chicago.
If Edmonton gets that number one spot in the Pacific, I think Connor McDavid could win MVP. Big game for him, even though without Leon Draisaitl. He's good in the late slate. Back him for 1.5 points, and Macklin Celebrini put him together. Big points coming from the big dogs in the late slate.
All right, Josh, great stuff as always. Have a great weekend. Thanks again.
Yeah, take care. Thanks so much.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Before we get to some last licks, as we told you earlier in the show, new quarterback in Las Vegas. Not Fernando Mendoza, not just yet. We got to wait a few weeks for that. It is Kirk Cousins, who signs a 5-year, $172 million deal with the Raiders. But hold the phone here. That 172 ain't going to be 172. It's a fully guaranteed 1-year, $20 million contract with options that could get it up to 80, because the Falcons are paying Cousins $8.7 million this season, and the Raiders now 1.3. So it's basically $10 million against the cap and against the roster. Why are they doing all this? Is because the Raiders are hopeful, I guess, that Cousins can come in, play a little bit if needed over Mendoza, then be a backup for the team, or maybe Cousins decides he wants to leave after this year and become a starter somewhere else. Seemingly that is the deal here. A lot of the reports are indicating that there is at least a good chance that Cousins could open up the season as a starter with the Raiders and then sort of mentor Mendoza for a couple games. And Mendoza, naturally, if he is taken by the Raiders, would then start at some point during the season, which does make some sense because a lot of these rookie quarterbacks are having trouble first few games of their season. Just look at Cam Ward last year. Tennessee took almost the whole year, even though he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Makes sense. Okay, as we wrap it up, we'll talk some baseball. Southsiders not off to a great start, and we'll wrap it up with some hardball talk. This is Last Licks. All right, the Chicago White Sox not having a great time. In fact, they really didn't enjoy their flight from Miami back to Chicago today because they were blown out in Miami and they got rained out today. So not a great start for the White Sox. man, it's been a couple of bad years for them, although they did have a pretty big improvement last year. 6 games into the season, the White Sox have lost by 5, 7, 10, and 12, and had a 7-2 lead, and also lost that game too. So they're 1-5 on the season. Their season win total and projections were somewhere around the 60 mark, which means they probably are going to lose 100 games. But man, that pitching is just having a really tough time. And the other part of this too is the White Sox can't participate in that draft lottery, so losing at this point really doesn't make sense for them. You can only do a couple of years, and then you got to get out of the lottery. Maybe the NBA should take notice of this. Hopefully the future is brighter for the White Sox, and certainly they signed Murakami, they signed Sir Anthony Dominguez, trying to add to their team, but it is not a good start for them. 1-5, that's the worst record in baseball to start the year. All right, how are you thinking about traveling across the country this summer? I know a lot of folks do this. They like to visit every single ballpark in America. Well, if you travel to all 30 ballparks in 30 days of April, it would amount to 18,712 miles traveled to get to every park. How about that? You would start in Seattle on April the 1st and finish in Sacramento for the A's on April the 30th. Remember, that's where the A's play, in Sacramento. Other notables: Yankee Stadium, Citizens Bank Park, April 19th, April 21st. One day not seeing a game would be a travel day for you if you chose to make this so. Now, for me, I've been to a lot of these parks, but I feel like the travel schedule is just sort of so insane that it's really hard to do. But 18,000 miles in a month, I guess you get some good frequent flyer with that. All right, yesterday in baseball, man, if you bet the favorites, you lost, right? Like the Dodgers last night, minus 300. Are you kidding me? Against Cleveland? That was the biggest favorite of the day. They lost 4-1. And how about this? As Josh just mentioned, the Avalanche closed at minus 450, second biggest favorite of the NHL season, or at least of the night. And the Avs lost yesterday 8-6 to Vancouver. So how about that? If you parlayed the Dodgers and Avs, it was a minus 159 parlay, and you did not come close. Both of those teams lost. I'm telling you, like to bet big favorites in baseball and hockey, I don't know what system you have, but it is a losing system. Eventually, you're going to get crushed, and that's what happened last night in baseball and in hockey as well. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Thanks to SBJ for coming on the show and talking some hoops with us. Also, thanks to Scott Spinelli for sharing his thoughts. He's been around in the game for a long time. We appreciate his participation. And also, Josh Inglis for talking some hockey with us as well. Thanks to our director, Tommy, and thanks to Frank on the graphics, and thanks to Chris for producing the show. I'm Craig Mish. We'll be back here for our next edition of NewsWire tomorrow, and if you want our full schedule of shows, just take out your phone and scan that QR code. It is the SportsGrid app available for iOS and Android. You can just stream us for free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That app costs you absolutely nothing. So make sure you take out your phone, scan that QR code right there, and you're all set. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll be back to wrap up our week-long edition of NewsWire Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern, exclusively here on SportsGrid. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you then.